Chickens like a water. He doesn't want me to choke while I'm speaking, does he? Goodness gracious.
You say you're going to make it painless.
Or painful, or one of the two.
Or painful.
So just, just...
Are we on?
We're pretty much on, yeah.
Uh-oh.
More or less. Yeah, so, well... I don't know what to say other than the fact that I appreciate you guys, even sitting down and talking with us or with me. Because I know that it's not the most comfortable thing in the world to do. I don't like doing it. I know most people don't like doing it unless you're got attention,
Anything for the future grandkids.
Oh, nice.
That's
what
like the
a way to
nicest thing.
start. I'm proud of you.
Where was that when I was a kid?
You never had it.
Yeah,
Knowing you, I never know what's going to come out of your mouth.
Look what we made, honey.
So I just wanted to start out with each of y'all's names and your birthdays and kind of where you grew up and just talk about your childhood. I know Grandma, you're from New York. Grandpa, you're also from New York, but two very different parts of New York. So why don't we start with you, Grandma? Just your full name and then your birthday and then all the details about your childhood.
Okay, I was born on December 10th, 1941, and that was 3 days after Pearl Harbor was attacked. So I've often wondered what my mother and father must have been thinking about having a child 3 days after a war was going to be beginning. Mm-hmm. But my dad chose my name, and it was Lorraine. And then I have a middle name, which is Barbara. And then when I was confirmed, the Catholic faith asked you to take on another name, which I chose Bernadette. So it's Lorraine, Barbara, Bernadette, and my dad's name was Balicki, B-A-L-I-C-K-I. We have Polish and German heritage in our family, so that's the background with us.
So when you grew up in what part of New York?
In Brooklyn.
In Brooklyn?
Brooklyn, New York, yes.
So do you have any memories from that time when you were growing up, before you had met Grandpa and kind of what life was like there?
Yeah, I do. Life was very different way back when, because families kind of stayed together. The house that we lived in was the first house, and you got a picture of this houses in Brooklyn. They're kind of all together. And my father owned the first house, and the second house, which is it's a three family. Each one were 3 family houses, and my dad owned the first house. Actually, he bought it from his mother, and she came over from Germany. In the second house, there was an Italian family, and all 3 families, Mom and Dad lived on the bottom floor, the son and his wife on the top, and then the daughter and her husband. And then the next house over was my grandmother's house, and my grandmother was on the first floor. We had an aunt. So the point I'm trying to make is that families were a lot closer.
Right.
My aunt lived upstairs from us. So that was one big difference. Nowadays, you just, your roots are way, way back, and you can't touch them like you used to be able to years ago.
Right.
Now, honestly speaking, that was good, but there were times when it was bad because not all families get together.
Yeah.
Not all families agree, so there was a little bit of tension.
Yeah, I can't imagine, if we all lived in the same building and in downtown New York, that'd be kind of hectic.
Yeah.
So.
And Polish don't get along too good.
Yeah. Okay, so Grandpa, you grew up in a different part of New York, so
I grew up in farm country.
So what's your birthday? It's August 3rd, right?
My middle name, my Merv Jr. Nobles, and that is my middle name.
Okay.
And I was born on August 2nd, 1938, in Livonia, New York, way out in the sticks. And and I've been to, my dad and mother got divorced, but
after they married, 25 years.
25 years. And I got 3 sisters, and it was tough watching over them.
Yeah, I've heard stories. I've seen the pictures, man. You look like when I see those pictures of you and the 3 other girls, you kind of look like, you're wide-eyed. Get me out of here. So, I know that you talked about what it was like growing up out on the farm, you all get together on Sundays and play baseball and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
So can you talk about your just childhood growing up or on the farm?
We every weekend we go to Grandma's house and eat dinner. There's a big family, and then we go out in the field there and play softball. And then when it's on the farm thing, you're out, moved all over. We moved everywhere to different farms, and I went to many schools. I think about 6 of them.
Really?
Yeah.
Was that in elementary school or all the way throughout? I mean, I know. What was the last grade that you completed? Was it like 9th grade? I haven't used anything past 9th grade, or actually 4th grade. So. But was it like 6 different schools within that little time frame? Probably.
Went to Sile, went for kindergarten, and they would let us. Mother would take us there, and we'd be running back home before Mom got home because we didn't live that far from the school.
Yeah.
And then we went to Wellsville for grade school. And went to Leroy, Honey Falls, Caledonia, and I never graduated, but I did get to 9th grade, but I don't think I passed those either.
You know what's funny is I talked to my dad, and he talks about how you're the smartest man he's ever met, and I can't agree more.
I paid him top dollar for that.
Yeah, that's why we said it on the interview right here. So I'll take the check after the interview. Anyway, so so I want to kind of talk about how you guys met. I know that. When my dad wrote that song that we were just talking about earlier, he kind of mentions how you guys met. And so, Grandpa, you were a Marine.
In 1958, I was kind of mad at my mother and father because they wouldn't sign for a car, so I joined the Marine Corps.
Okay.
For 3 years. I wanted to go overseas, and anybody that wanted to go overseas didn't go overseas. Marine Corps does the opposite of what you want.
Okay.
So I got stationed in Brooklyn, Navy Yard, and that's where I met Lorraine, and she was trying to date a sailor, but I saved her.
So, Grandma, let's hear your perspective on how you guys met.
No, that's basically true.
Yeah.
Wow!
Yeah, there you go. So y'all met on the yard. Why were you there?
Well, can I just explain something to you? I guess I was going down to visit this guy. What happened was, a friend of mine.
Well, the Navy Yard.
A friend of mine had a date with a sailor, and she comes to me and she says, "Lorraine," she says, "you want to go out with this friend of my friend?" So I said, "Yeah." So, what wound up doing there was they kind of rented a hotel, and it was just kind of like a ballroom type thing.
Okay.
Well, a couple days after that, I knew he was stationed at the Navy, so I'll go visit him. He wouldn't let me in.
This was at the Brooklyn Navy Yard, and that's where the sailors all came into.
The ships came in.
And I can't let her in. I'd be arrested.
Yeah.
Well, that was I know then. So anyway, that's basically how we first met.
Yeah.
So is there any part of the kind of life before y'all started having kids? Because what year was Cac born?
62.
62.
Well,
and so y'all were married in when were y'all married?
61.
Yes.
61. So y'all were married for about a year before you started having kids? Maybe a little
Well, we
more.
married in January of 61, and Cac was born in April of 62.
Okay.
So we were pretty busy there for a while.
When we got married, I moved we didn't live in a city. We moved to the country, and she's not used to the country.
So what was that like for you to move out? Kind of a culture shock?
Those sidewalks are nothing, Ma!
Yeah, seriously, it was a very different lifestyle, but one of the things that I think that a lot of couples have problems with, if one of the people are going to be leaving their family to go to another location, sometimes it's very, very difficult to break from your family of origin. But my mom and dad had the mindset, basically, you got to go where your husband is going to earn a living and provide for you. So I didn't have anything holding me back. They were willing to let me go. And of course, we visited each other. It was probably about 400 or 500 miles from Brooklyn to upstate New York where we were living.
Okay.
So that made it easier for me. But adjusting to country life compared to city life.
I bet that was a big deal.
Yeah, it was. It was.
So, Grandpa, you were working at the time. What were you? Was you still getting paid from the Marine Corps?
I was on the farm there. When I come out of the Marine Corps, I was working in a meat plant and making sausage, and then same time, I working on a horse farm, racing horses.
Okay.
And then, same time, I was working the airline, so I had 3 jobs. I worked
My gosh.
I worked the airline in the morning and meat plant, and then
That was all up in New York, or was that when?
no, that's all in New York.
Wow. Okay. Okay.
And but I wasn't making big money. I started at the meat plant at 50 cents an hour. The
Seriously.
airlines was 99 cents an hour, and the horse farm was whatever, about 50 cents an hour.
That's crazy.
Then we
Gosh.
farmed, was on the farm at 50 cents an hour. But it'd be lunch night, go to school, you come home, you milk the cattle, and then or the cows, and you jumped on the tractor and went there until dark. And back in, we didn't go using a bathtub, we went down to the creek to jump in to get dirt off from us. So,
That's pretty cool.
yeah, it was,
It's a little different than how we do it around here.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And we always rented. Our rent was $60 a month for, 3 bedrooms?
That's golly, yeah. We'll talk about the price difference. I know we're in a house that costs less than your car
Yeah,
does. So,
it's crazy.
so let's go into kids. So you had Cac first, and then you had Steve, and then you had Tom. Is that right?
You know, we
There's
lost-
Tom, then Steve. Tom's older than.
We lost
No, we had
one.
Michael.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay,
Michael.
yeah. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
So why don't we go through your kids and just kind of say the names and that kind of stuff, and just maybe a little bit about them. Like talk about the uniqueness of each one of your kids. You know, so you had Cac, and then we can go from there. So Cac was obviously born first.
Yeah.
And you said 62.
Yeah, she was born in 62, and then in June of 1963, Michael was born. Carried him full term. He was a 9-month baby, but something happened within the past, within 5 days of the last doctor's visit. Something had happened, and so I went to the hospital, and they delivered the baby, but he wasn't alive at that time. Never did find out what was going on. It was just something that happened, and years ago, it happened, and kind of that was the end of it, which is the wrong thing to do. That should not have been, but that's the way it was.
Yeah.
I think that a mother and a father should have had time to bond with the child, even though it was not alive, and that was not the thinking then.
Yeah.
And so then in 1966, Steve was born. And there's some memories that are attached to that that I had to deal with. Basically, having lost a son, I think I was internally afraid that maybe I wasn't going to be able to have any a boy.
Yeah.
And then Steve came along, and here you go, David. Here's your son.
So, Grandpa, were you excited about having a boy, or were
Oh
you
yeah,
kinda
well,
nervous?
I was excited about them all, but you can't go in the hospital.
No, the thing is, Merv, seriously, I don't know what it is. I'm probably confessing now, but I don't know what it is. And I don't know if it was just me, but I think when I was having my first child, I think it was important to me. Oh, I got to present my husband with a son.
Right.
And so when Kat was born, it was just like, where's the boy?
Right. Yeah.
But he was so delighted with the little girl. I mean, he didn't have any issues with it. I think he was probably more proud of than that.
Well, I had
you
3
know.
sisters, so
Yeah. That's
get
true.
another girl.
He didn't know what to do with a boy at that time.
Yeah.
But that was just a little thing that I had dealt with, and I'm just so grateful that God knew what He was doing by giving me my daughter first,
Right.
because she's the prize of our life. I
How
love
about
her
Tom?
dearly.
Don't forget
And
Tom.
then my last
Oh, yeah.
one, but that was kind of there was something very unusual about that too, because Tom was born in June, and he was born on June 3rd, and that was the exact same day that Michael was born, the child that we lost.
That's incredible.
So it was kind of a mind blower. I thought, oh my goodness gracious, this is.
How does that happen? You know, that's
Yeah,
crazy.
exactly.
Very crazy.
But it was so funny too, because I can remember one time was Tom's birthday, and I used to bake birthday cakes for the kids. Nowadays, you go to the bakery and spend $50 for a birthday cake, but years ago, you went to the store and got a cake mix.
Well, yeah, y'all buying fruitcakes now, and that's pretty expensive.
And so I baked the cake, and his brother came home and took a piece of Tom's birthday cake without anybody knowing it. And so Tom looked at the birthday cake and thought, what happened to my cake? I said, well, we cut a piece for your brother Michael.
That's great, man. So is there? I just want to go kid by kid and go. So let's start with Cac and just what do y'all remember about her being a kid, and if there was anything unique about them, personality wise. We'll start with Cac and then we'll go into my dad, which I'm sure those stories between my dad and Tom. He's told me all the stories of how he would be watching Tom get hit and he'd be laughing through the window, and then you'd see him and then he'd get beat.
My theory was. My first thing out of my mouth was, no, I don't care what the kids ask, and go see your mother. I don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
And then I come home. What'd they do? Well, I only got a portion of what they did that day, so I couldn't punish them too bad.
They were good kids.
Yeah.
No, I'm serious. Cac. What I think probably the thing that I remember the most about Cac, and I guess it's a male-female difference and stuff like that, but when Cac would come home from school, as soon as she would walk in the door, and all of a sudden, she'd go on and on and on. And fortunately, I was able to be a stay-at-home mom to where I was available for the kids, which Cac has told me many times, Mom, I'm so glad that when I came in the door that you were there. And
that's great.
I was appreciative of that.
I was probably, when's Grumpy coming home?
And then Steve, they're very, very quiet. The boys, while we had special times communicating, I love to visit with the boys and stuff like that, but there's certainly times in their life that they're really busy and they're more private.
Right.
If they had a problem or an issue, more than likely they would keep it to themselves. And there were things that I found out afterwards that had happened with them, but they wouldn't.
Yeah.
And Tom, he was my little sweetheart. He was a baby.
Yeah.
So he got special treatment.
He's not a baby anymore.
That's what the other kids said, we treated him different.
Yeah.
But I think, to be honest, I think that the more kids you have, the more relaxed you are raising the children.
Okay.
It's just like the first one, it's got to be perfect. You can't make no mistakes. By the time the second, third, and fourth come along, you think to yourself,
That's why Cac says Tom's spoiled. She's the last one.
That's funny.
But I am very blessed to have the children. I really, I think the goal of my life, I never had a career-oriented mentality. My goal was to be a wife and a mother, and I really enjoyed.
Well, I think from my perspective, I've never personally seen a household with as much stability as you guys. It just feels different coming into this house. Like there's a lot of history to this house, and there's a lot of memories. You can see pictures of my dad and Tom with gloves that are as long as their legs are, and there's just it's really, really cool to be in a household where this is where my dad grew up. This used to be a garage, that was the house and all that kind of stuff. So I think, and that's unique in my family and y'all's family in particular. It's like there's no really other household that we can point to that has that kind of heritage and that rich kind of tradition. Where maybe 20 years ago I was sitting right there and we're about to go Christmas present hunting. In this house. I think it's really cool.
You used to have Christmas in every room.
Yeah, that was. I remember.
They weren't big toys then. They were little.
Man, we had a blast. But that's what's cool is like it's not about that kind of stuff. It's just about having a really.
Do you remember the tunnels you and Shelby used to have here, going through the garage, all the boxes?
Yes, I completely forgot about that.
We'd tape them up, and that was your toy.
That's funny. So I guess I want to talk. Maybe is there any Grandpa? Do you have any memories of just what the boys growing? Yeah.
Can I throw something else into the family situation? First of all, I want to thank you so much because the things that you share with us, it kind of makes me feel like we did things right. And I also, every family has their issues and their problems and stuff like that. And life is not perfect. And there is fussing going on in between families who really do love each other. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a part of growing. And I think the biggest part of growing is that you've got to learn to forgive when that stuff happens. Because if you don't forgive, you're messing up a lot of your life and a lot of somebody else's life. So I just want to throw that into the mix that life is good, family life is wonderful, but I think if you have this, Father knows best type image of what your family should be like, that doesn't always work out that way, but that doesn't mean that you've missed the mark or anything like that. It's just a way to grow spiritually, and I thank God Almighty for all the help that He has given us
Have you
to do,
forgiven
Father.
me yet?
For what?
Yeah, there you go.
No, hey. Dude,
All right, tell it now.
no, yeah. So that's. I mean, gosh, I hear so many good stories about between just Grandpa. I don't know, like between Steve and Tom. Do you remember if there's like any funny stories between Steve and Tom that you can recall where there's kind of like it doesn't necessarily have to be a special moment per se, but it can just be something in your memory that you remember.
Well, I can remember Tom riding on the front of the motorcycle. I used to have a motorcycle, which wasn't too smart, and he fell down burned his leg on the muffler on the front of the motorcycle. One time I had him behind me and his helmet fell off, and they tipped the motorcycle over in the garage one time, and Steve weed whacked his leg because he had to do the weed whacking on the grass.
Remember this? He's telling me the story of Tom taking a trash bag and he swung it up against his leg and sliced his leg open.
Oh, that was after he's married down in an apartment, yeah.
Yeah, and then was there working on the cars? I know that's yeah. So can you talk about my dad? Can you talk about my dad's first car?
Yeah, your dad had troubles with his cars, and I remember throwing wrenches at the windshield. He was sitting behind the wheel. Thought the wrench came through the windshield. But whenever I was doing kind of work on the car, they would run and hide someplace, But
Yeah.
now they all work on their own cars,
The boys got along pretty good together. They did. There was none of this really heavy duty fighting, fist fighting or anything like that. They went through one time, I remember, when they were picking at each other. And I got to the point where I thought, you know what, I don't like this, So I got them together and I said, okay guys, listen, let me tell you something. This is not what I expect from you. And I don't want to see it and I don't want to hear it. So why don't you two go down to the school and duke it out? And get whatever it is in your system out of your system and then come back and we'll start all over again.
That's awesome.
There was not one mark on either one of them, so
No.
they probably shook hands
They
again.
all went to their room and decided that they didn't want to go there.
Yeah.
Wasn't Steve, didn't he hit the mailbox with the bike? He was riding his bike and ran into our mailbox.
I remember him saying something about that, and then he said he was going up to catch. He was looking this way to catch a ball, and then he made contact with their mailbox.
Oh,
They're teaching the kids how to play ball.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So
Pop-up flies?
I threw as high as I could. This is how you catch it. Coing, right in the head.
well,
I remember throwing the ball to you too. Don't jump,
Hey,
man.
just pass it along. Hey, you know what that means? I got to do to my kids and grandkids, right? So,
Tom would not catch a ball. I'd put him against the wooden fence out there. I'd throw the ball right at him. And eventually
did he
he'd
learn
catch
to
the
catch a ball? That's
ball. Real quick.
That's what I'm talking about, man. That's good stuff. So, did life change at all after the kids went out of the house, or because I know that I've spent a lot of time with you guys in the last 3 or so years. But what was life like? Whenever I guess my dad left the house and Cac was out of the house and everybody kind of went away.
We probably had a big birthday party. Mark this down as one.
Yeah. You remember one?
No.
Is there anything different about that, or
Yeah.
or not
Well,
really?
I don't know. I think men and women probably handle that a little bit differently. And I don't think there's one set rule for women, one set rule for men, because I think sometimes men and women can feel differently. But for me, I was kind of lost because my career was over. I didn't have much to do compared to what we were doing and stuff like that. And so it was an adjustment. I really, I missed the kids, and I was glad to see them all to the point where they were as happy as you can be.
After 30 years of the airlines, I came home, took the house over when I was done. That was
Retirement, that's another whole story. He's talking about the kids going.
Then I came home and the kids are gone.
Yeah.
Oh my gracious.
So I guess that would be the next thing is after retirement. You were at American Airlines for how long? You said 30?
What, 30 years?
30 years.
I retired in 2002? I don't even remember.
We started in 60 years.
I started in
66,
Rochester
70.
at the airlines about 5 years, and I came to Texas for the rest of the time. We rented, and then we bought the house that we live in now at $21,500.
That was in 73. Is that right?
72.
72.
Yeah.
For how much? 20.
21,500. But we were paying rent over there, what, $60 or $70 in Euless when we first moved here. Yeah.
Jeez.
I had to get out of Rochester for the snow. It was cold. I hate snow. I hate cold.
Do you like
come to Texas?
Do you like the cold, Grandma, or are you not really a fan?
I have a tendency to favor the cold a little bit more, but the older I get, the more I'm going over to the warm.
With an Armstrong heater, she can't go wrong.
Yeah.
All I gotta do is get it started.
So I guess, just to kind of close out, is there any advice that you would want, people to, I know, Grandma, you kind of touched on this before, is there anything that you would want people to know, and that, like, life rules and wisdom that you guys have come across over the years that I know sometimes you learn lessons from seeing other people do things wrong or right, and then you can learn lessons by experiencing them yourself. And for me, I know that some lessons in life I've had people tell me over and over and over again, but until I experienced it myself, I didn't really understand and gather like the knowledge from it. So is there anything that you guys have experienced in life that you would say is like a good rule to live by? I know you touched earlier on the fact that when things go wrong in the family, you got to keep the family together. Is there anything else? Grandpa, I know you say don't get married ever, so I'm doing good on that part.
When you were coming to the door, I says, he could be out looking for a wife. Why is he coming there?
I still got your advice ingrained in the back of my head. Look, no rings on the fingers.
Well, I am thankful that all of our grandkids, our great-grandkids, they've all been straight, no dope or whatever that I know of. You may not told me. But I have a great family.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
For me, I think over the course of your life, you're learning lessons, like you said, and at different stages in your life, the lessons become more. They become more wise. And by that I mean, one of the things that I think that we need to learn how to do, and I've tried to do that, is, God accepts us for what we are, the way we are. Mm-hmm. And for some reason, it's hard for human beings to do that with each other. And I think we place too high expectations on people, especially people in our own family. I know there was a point in time where my spiritual life was growing, and it was just like, I have got to learn to accept, because we disappoint each other. It's just part of our human nature to not live up to. I'm sure that I didn't live up to the expectations of him, and there were certain things that he didn't live up to the expectations from me. And inside you can fester up and you can become angry about that. But the bottom line is, God has called me to love him exactly the way he is, and to try to change him or anybody else. I'm using him because this is the most intimate relationship you have. Yeah. This is a relationship you're in for life. Yeah. But you can do the same thing with your children, their spouses, your grandchildren. Just accept people for the way they are. God knows praying for them is going to reap more benefits than being angry. And I think that's one thing that I think life would be a lot easier, a lot more peaceful. Now, I'm not saying you have to agree with everybody and everything, but we have free will. We have free choice.
In 2019 here, how many years have you been married? 58? Mm-hmm. And I learned to say, I did it.
And I learned to accept that.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? There's a reason why you guys.
You're right. You did do it.
Well, I really, really appreciate you guys doing this. I don't want to rush it, but I can't wait for the day because for me personally, you guys have had such a profound impact on my life. And there's times, when there's some stability issues, in my childhood, and I'm not blaming anybody for that, but what was stable was having you guys here. And so whenever I needed a rock to come stand on, even I would come here and you guys would just accept me with open arms, and I could not eat,
I just want to let you know you're the only grandchild that has ever stayed here. It will be the only one.
We send this out to everybody.
Today, you
It
know.
will be the only one too.
Could we edit
I
that
learned
out?
my lesson.
No, we're not. No, it's funny though because
Just kidding. I'm only kidding.
you know I learned more in that 6 months on how to stay clean and keep a wife happy than I ever
In a
could
frying
have.
pan,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I don't nowadays. Like every time I spray that every morning when I'm making eggs, I'm like, "Thank you, Grandma." I'm doing my laundry. I'm like, "Thank you, Grandma."
I was probably more afraid of slipping on the grease on the floor than I was anything else. That's why I wanted to let you know. Don't do that no more.
Yeah. So
Come here, Ben. We got to talk.
that's kind of how y'all approached it too. It's like,
Don't leave the dryer running where you're going.
yeah. No, I still live by those things that I learned there.
But
So.
it was a joy having you here. And I
Yes.
mean that from the bottom.
I even learned how to you taught her how to cut my hair.
That was a wild time, man. But anyways, you know, thank you guys so much, and I'm sure I'm not going to be the only one that enjoys this video, and I know that my dad and Tom and Kak have all talked about doing this, and they're going to enjoy it. So thank you guys.
Okay. Love you, kids.
Love you. You know, it's not so easy being on TV, is it?